a world where losing in your fantasy football league isn't an option, we present to you Triple Coverage Podcast.
Hey YouTubers, make sure you click subscribe below if you like what you see. Today we're going to do another edition of Change My Mind, and this one's going to be running backs. So sit back, crack a cold one, and enjoy.
In a world where losing in your fantasy football league isn't an option, we present to you Triple Coverage Podcast.
And I'm not proud of him, but in fantasy football, it's like, anything goes.
The guy from the back of the room that's like, reach.
The only thing I don't like, though, and I know that you guys don't like it either.
The thing that bothers me, too, is this happens a lot in redraft.
I hate that. A lot of stuff bothers us. We're bothered by everything, just to let you guys know.
Even if they're not looking at you. I mean, you're a huffer and a puffer
Sure,
sometimes.
sure.
Where he's like,
All right, welcome back to Triple Coverage Podcast. Today I'm not gonna huff and puff today.
We'll see.
And regardless of what that intro said, this is something we really like. It's a new game that we started. We did the wide receivers, and now we're going to move on to running backs. It's called Change My Mind.
Yes.
I'm here with my brother James.
Whoa, whoa.
I am Jay, and let's dive right into it. I'll give you the real quick rundown of the rules. We basically took 12 running backs that are all in the running back like 3 range, maybe even like running back 4. Some guys you might put in your flex. There's no big marquee names in this. You're not going to have Todd Gurley in this. You're not going to have Ezekiel Elliott or David Johnson. These are going to be guys that you're going to be deciding each week whether to play in your flex spot or not. But they're all pretty much worthy of drafting.
And if you don't love the guy, when you draw the name, you better quickly change your mind and love the guy to try to sell our audience on who you would rather have on your team, regardless of if you love him or not. We're going to try to make a case for either guy.
And that's the main thing. We're going to state our case, but we're talking to you, the viewers, and the listeners out there. We're not trying to convince each other.
Which I tried to do on the wide receiver one. I apologize. I thought I was trying to change your mind, but it makes more sense to try to change the viewer and the listener's mind.
We're going to give you all the info that you need, and you're going to make your decision off of that. So let's get it started. You want to draw first? Go ahead and draw first.
All right, James, myself, I got wonderful Chris Thompson from the Redskins. Jay, you got who?
I got Rex Burkhead.
Okay, both kind of similar. You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so actually some good news for Chris Thompson just came out, I think, yesterday, which was Monday, the 3rd, that he is not going to be on the PUP list or a candidate to be on the PUP list. He did have a bad injury last season towards the middle to end of part of that year, and now they're saying that he is going to be fully healthy for week 1. So I'm not really concerned there. I also am pretty confident in Chris Thompson's role in this offense, that it won't change regardless of if it's Darius Guice, Samaje Perine, Rob Kelly, etc., etc. Chris Thompson's the one guy that's going to be that third down guy that will be the pass catching back there regardless of what else they do and who wins the starting job and who's playing and vice versa. However that shakes down, doesn't matter for Chris Thompson. He's being drafted right now in the 7th round, 10th pick as a running back 35. But with the upside, we kind of saw a little stretch last season of what he did in Washington, and it was very, very good. And he was not only a flex guy, you could have had him as your number 2, and he would have been very fantasy relevant. Can you find him on the thing so I can see where he finished last season? So he finished right there as running back 26, and that's after his injury as well. But if you look at the start of the season, scroll back, start of the season, he finished 15.5 points, 25 points, 33.8 points. His first 3 weeks of the season, he was shot out of a cannon. Then he had 2, came off the bye, and had another 3 great weeks, 19, 17, 16. So to me, he was a running back 2, almost a back-end running back 1 at the first half of the season. Then some stuff changed. He ended up getting his injury, and you never really heard from him the rest of the season. So if he kind of jumps right back into that role and now has Darius Guice as a clear-cut guy, and they're not rotating guys like Samaje Perine and Rob Kelly trying to figure out where these guys are, and they just throw Darius Guice out there with Chris Thompson as a third down back. I love him this season. I think he's going to have a tremendous year. Whereas Rex Burkhead, on the other hand, is in a similar situation. I think he also is kind of cemented in, but it's like cemented in pencil. It's not in concrete. And I think that a lot of changes in New England could happen one fumble away from being pulled from the lineup for 3 games, and I'm very inconsistent on those Patriot running back. So
I think that with Rex Burkhead, he's another guy that you're going to be starting in your flex. He could get you weeks where he's a back end running back too. I know you're not going to know when to play him, but I think he's a good quality starter because of the situation he's in. I think he's in a better situation with New England this year than he was last year. I think he's going to vulture some touchdowns. I think that if Sony Michel stumbles at all, and we've talked about this, I like the prospects of Sony Michel, but he's one mistake away from getting benched for a couple of games. I know they took Michel in the first round, but if Michel does come out and fumble in, say, the first or second game, it's going to be a lot and a heavy dose of Rex Burkhead. And that's where you're going to see it pay dividends. So, yeah, you may have to sit on Burkhead for a little bit longer than, say, Chris Thompson, because Thompson already has his role carved out. Mm-hmm. But Burkhead is a guy that's going to give you extreme value if anything bad happens to Michel. There's not much behind Burkhead. You have James White, who's there basically just as a receiving guy. Burkhead can kind of do it all. He can get carries. He can go and run routes. He can be a receiving back. He can get the goal line because he's a little bit bigger and stockier. He's a guy that can kind of do it all. He just needs the opportunity. And I understand that he's in New England and they always run a committee, but he's one mistake from Sony Michel away from being a valuable back-end RB2. And he's somebody that even with Michel there, I think you can still get good flex value out of him.
Yeah, honestly, I think that these two are very, very similar in where they're going to finish this season. I don't love one over the other. I think they're both viable options at the flex and have the potential to be RB2s at some in some peaks during the season. And once they get the hot hand and they're getting touches, I think both of them could be very viable options at the running back position. So I love both these guys, to be honest with you, because you're not drafting these guys. They're going both in the 7th round. So these guys aren't going to be your number 2. They might even be your number 4. And if you can get Chris Thompson or Rex Burkhead as your number 4 or your number 3 as your flex guy, then I love it. And I love the value that you're getting there. I don't think that they're going too high or too low. I think they're going in a great spot in the 7th round.
Yeah, I think I would give the slight advantage to it's kind of hard to explain. I give the slight advantage to Burkhead just because I know he's a guy that can kind of do everything if given the opportunity. Chris Thompson, he has the one role. He's a receiving back. He's not going to get carries even if Geis and Pirine went down. Like, they would bring somebody else in because they know that Chris Thompson's a receiving back, whereas Burkhead's not like just a one-trick pony. He's going to be a guy that can get everything. He just needs that opportunity. So that's what I'm banking on. That's why I would take Burkhead slightly over Chris Thompson, in my opinion.
I mean, Thompson only played how many weeks? 10? Did he play after that? Yeah,
it's
10.
the same.
So he played 10 weeks only, and he finished as running back. What did I say? 26.
Yeah, Burkhead's
Imagine
10
that.
also.
I know, it's great. Like, both these guys have tremendous upside, but Burkhead finished 39, which is 13 spots below Chris Thompson. So 10 games Chris Thompson played only, and so he's easily a top 20, maybe even a top 15 guy if he finishes out that season, because Pirine got hurt, you had Rob Kelly hurt. If he does finish out that season, he's a borderline running back 1. And for where he's going right now, being healthy in the back end of the 7th round, it's a great value for me.
The difference for me on that, and like I said, I'm not bashing Chris Thompson, but the difference for me on that is that Washington added Darius Geis through the draft, whereas New England basically lost Dion Lewis to free agency.
They didn't add Sony Michel, though?
They added Sony Michel, but he's a rookie.
First round rookie.
Right.
I mean, that's okay. It's a little different, but okay. I think it's the same thing. You lose Dion Lewis, but you bring in Sony Michel, which basically is going to be the Dion Lewis. Same type of guy. You draft him in the first round, they're not just going to not use him at all.
No, I think that matchup was actually a pretty good matchup, especially.
Me too.
It's crazy how we have 12 names here. We're drawing out of a hat, and we happen to pick the 2 guys that are going basically back to back.
Right next to each other,
in
right?
ADP.
All right, what do we have next? Sony Michel.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. You got Sony Michel.
Well, I just made a great case for him, so go ahead.
You did. And I have your boy, Jamal Williams.
This will be interesting.
This will be very interesting. I'll go first this time.
Okay.
Jamal Williams, to me...
I can't wait to hear this.
You've heard me on the podcast many times tell you Aaron Jones is the guy you want to own in Green Bay and not Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams now is going to be thrust into a starting position with Ty Montgomery because Aaron Jones is going to miss the first 2 games. So now that's going to put Aaron Jones behind the 8 ball. And truth be told, I have a wall bet on this show with Aaron Jones finishing in top fantasy points. And when I heard he got suspended for those 2 games, I was like, there goes that wall bet basically. I know I'm screwed now because even if he goes to all the training camp, he's going to miss those 2 games. He's going to be behind the 8 ball. And if either one of these guys, Malt Williams or Ty Montgomery, have any kind of a good game, Jones is going to be taking a backseat for the rest of the season. Jamal Williams is the type of guy that's going to steal the goal line. Like, Ty Montgomery is not a goal line back. They're going to be putting Ty Montgomery out as not just the receiving back, but he's going to be the guy that's out there getting the catches, getting the receptions, whereas Jamal Williams is going to be getting first down, second down, and goal line.
Yeah.
Having Aaron Jones get suspended, to me, puts Jamal Williams in a great position. He needs to capitalize and take it when he can, but that puts him in a great spot having Aaron Jones miss the first 2 games of the season.
I agree. It does put him in a good spot to start the year. But we've seen in Green Bay, just like we did last season, every single one of those guys got hurt at some point. Every one of them. So I don't think it puts Aaron Jones that far behind the 8 ball because literally all 3 guys got hurt last season. All he needs is 1 injury and he's right back in there again. Same thing with Sony Michel. I mean, you have to believe that Belichick is going to use Sony Michel. They haven't taken a running back since in the first round since 19 whatever it was when they drafted Lawrence Maroney more than 10 years ago. So they plan on using Sony Michel. I do believe that. I'm not sure for where he's going, which is 502 right now in ADP, if that's just a little high for me. Now, if you are just comparing the names of Sony Michel versus Jamal Williams, I'll take the guy that was getting drafted in the first round with that first round pedigree. I saw what he did in Georgia. He looked awesome all season, but he really shined when it came time for the playoffs. And him and Nick Chubb both did very well during that stretch. So if he can protect the ball, I don't see any issues that Sony Michel is not going to be very fantasy relevant and easily beat out Jamal Williams. But the problem, though, is that in college, that's all he did was fumble. So unless he's only strictly working on keeping that ball and keeping it secure, if he can do that, then I think he's going to be used a lot in this offense. And you have Tom Brady as a quarterback, which there's nothing to hate about that. But Jamal Williams is a little messy there with Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery. I think that's going to be a who's the hot hand this week, and I don't feel confident playing that guy. Sony Michel is going to be, at the worst case scenario, getting 40% of the snaps, and it's consistent 40% with the upside of maybe even 70% of the snaps if he does well. So I'll take the guy with a more upside that was drafted in the first round rather than take the guy that I think was drafted in the 4th, I believe.
Fourth round pick Jamal Williams, but he's being drafted almost 3 full rounds later.
Value of Jamal Williams right now is, for me, is ridiculous. I love it.
If you can get a possible number 1 starter 3 rounds later than a guy, I mean, let's face it, both guys are in committees.
For sure.
Both guys are. But you're taking one guy 3 rounds later with Jamal Williams, and if you had Jamal Williams on your team and you stuck it out and you actually had the balls to start him towards the end of the season, he catapulted you into the playoffs.
Yeah, when he was the only guy there, he did very, very well. When he knew that there was no one else breathing down his neck, he did great, right?
Weeks 12, 13, and 14, he had 30 points, 23 points, and 30 points again. That right there, those 3 weeks, right towards the end of the season, if you were like on the fringe of making the playoffs, that pushed you into the playoffs, especially if he's your running back 2, which he probably was on your team if you had Jamal Williams and you started him.
Right. So I like both options, but I'm a little leery to draft either one of these in a redraft. I love both these guys in a dynasty. In a redraft, I'm just, for where Sony Michel's going, it's very high, but it could very easily pan out. Something happens to Burkhead, and it just ends up being like Sony Michel and James White. I think you're going to get a heavy dose of Sony Michel, and I think he finishes as a running back 2 very easily if that's the case. Now, if you're planning on spreading the ball out to those 3 guys, and you still have Gillislee, and you still have all these other options that are there, and Jeremy Hill, something's got to give.
If Michel ends up being like this year's Kamara type, who came into the situation where he's not like the unquestioned starter, but he's in a committee, and then he ends up giving you the type of output that Kamara did, then the 5th round is worth it. Same thing goes for Jamal Williams. If Jamal Williams ends up winning this job,
he's going at 7-12, which is the 8th round.
Almost the 8th round. The back end of the 7th, if you get a starting running back, especially for Green Bay's offense, and Aaron Rodgers is healthy, then that's a great value too. So to me, Jamal Williams is a great value as we speak. Sony Michel is a great value if he gives you the type of numbers that maybe Kamara or one of the running backs last year gave.
Which that's kind of up in the air as right now. Which I don't even think when the season starts it'll still be up in the air because it's Belichick. And that'll be up in the air week to week.
He's definitely not playing his hand.
No, I don't even think he knows what he's doing next week.
Let's go up next. Okay, I got Tariq Cohen.
And I got C.J. Anderson.
I like this because it's 2 completely different types of backs.
I agree. So, you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go ahead and go first.
Okay, so C.J. Anderson is with a new team, with a new offense, and to me, I think he's in a lot better situation than he was last year. Last season, I think he finished as number 20. No, wasn't he in the teens?
C.J. Anderson was 17.
Number 17. So C.J. Anderson finished as a running back 17 in Denver. With the mess that was going on there, he still had a very productive season and finished as an RB2. To me, he cemented no less. He will finish in the top 24. That's a guarantee because he's on a better team with a better offensive line and a lot better offense, in my opinion. With Cam Newton as his quarterback, you have McCaffrey, who's going to be the 3rd down back there. C.J. Anderson, to me, by all accounts, is going to be the 1st and 2nd down back and the goal line guy. He only had, I think, 3 touchdowns last season, which was very underwhelming, but he rushed for over 1,000 yards. So if he can come anywhere near 1,000 yards again and bump up his touchdowns just a little bit, he's a running back 1. He's finishing in the 12 to 14 range, right outside the running back 1. And to me, that's somebody that I want to have. If I have that option to start C.J. Anderson in my flex as my running back 3, I am over the moon happy about that because I think he's going to have a decent season and be very consistent for you. Tarik Cohen, on the other hand, had a huge start to last season in his rookie year where he had 25, 14, 13, almost double digits every single week, and then just kind of fell off and was one of those guys that was a hit and miss of either he got 8 catches or he got nothing, and it was all Jordan Howard. And Jordan Howard sometimes was getting 30 touches in a game, and Cohen was just non-existent. Then Cohen would come in and get 6 catches for 100 yards. You're like, oh, he's back, and then the next week he wasn't again. So if they use him the way that he can be used, Tarik Cohen should have a huge year, but I don't think it'll be a better year than C.J. Anderson with that behind that offensive line with all the touches he's going to get. It's going to be very hard to beat out a starting running back, to my opinion, because Cohen's got Howard there.
Well, here's how I feel about this: is that we're talking PPR leagues, which is pretty much the standard now. I know they put standard in quotes because a standard league is always just touchdowns and yards, but PPR is the new standard.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not playing in a PPR league, then you're living in the
Ice Age.
Yeah. So in my opinion, bringing in Nagy as the head coach of the Chicago Bears was the best thing they could have done for a player like Cohen. Bad news for Howard. I think Howard still will get his, but that's not the type of running back that I think Nagy wants to hang his hat on. They're talking about all kinds of hype about how Tarik Cohen is going to be a Tyreek Hill light. They're going to say they're going to use him all over the field. They're not just going to bring him in as a running back. They're going to be using him with screens, running routes. They want to use him to his full potential.
Do you believe that?
And I think I believe it to some degree, but here's the thing that's kind of bothering me about Cohen is that I loved him if you can get him a couple of months ago.
Right.
Obviously you're not doing a redraft, you're doing Dynasty a couple of months ago, but by the time people start drafting in late August and camp starts going through, it's going to be even more out of control. So I don't love Cohen at his value, even though I love the player. He's going in the 6th round, early 6th round. And you're talking still about a backup running back. He's not the starter. He's not going to be the starter. If Howard goes down, it's not going to be the Tarik Cohen show.
But for where he is going, which is running back 29, I think he finishes in the top 29. He actually finished exactly 29th last season in a PPR league.
And
now
I think
he's going as running back 29 again.
He should be better, yes. I guess I'm just upset that the hype has gotten out of control to where I wanted him to be one of those sneaky guys you get later. Because let's face it, last year it was a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
No one heard of this guy. He was being drafted in the 4th or 5th round of your rookie drafts in Dynasty, and in redraft he wasn't even being drafted. Then all of a sudden he blows up. His stock goes through the roof, and you're trading him for 2nd round picks,
mm-hmm.
For the next year. And then all of a sudden he falls off again, and then you could have got him for dirt cheap. And then as soon as the offseason happens, now his stock is going back up because of coach speak.
What about the blockbuster trade that was made in our Dynasty League? We had Mike Gillislee start the season with 4 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks, and then you had Cohen, who we just said blew up and had 16 and 26 or whatever it was. And
both guys started off hot the first 2 weeks.
25 and 14, sorry. And then they got traded straight up in our Dynasty League. Tarik Cohen for Mike Gillislee. And the Mike Gillislee owner was very, very hurt that from week 4 on, he pretty much was unheard of. Now they go out and they get Sony Michel, and now Gillislee's the 5th option on the team
He's on the
as far as
bubble.
running back. So
He's on the roster bubble.
But C.J. Anderson I love as a running back 2. If he's a running back 3, I love it even more. Cohen, to me, is just... Like you said, the hype's kind of got out of control, but the main factor there is that there's so many moving parts right now with that offense. They added Allen Robinson, they added Taylor Gabriel, they lost Cameron Meredith, then they add Trey Burton. It's there's a lot of going on. The backfield hasn't changed, but that's been the only consistent thing. Now you have Trubisky going into his 2nd year. I think that it benefits Cohen more than it does Howard because I think that, like you said, now he has a rapport with Cohen a little bit. That's going to be a security blanket when he's not going to Adam Shaheen and Trey Burton.
John Fox, the Bears coach from last year, is notorious about not wanting to play rookies. He doesn't like playing rookies. And Cohen got a little bit of run, and he showed flashes of what he can do. I think under Nagy, you're going to see his full potential.
Do you think both guys can finish in the top 24?
I think both guys can finish in the top 24, and that's in a PPR league because let's not forget that Anderson can still catch.
Anderson had like 32 catches last season.
But the thing that kind of bothers me is that McCaffrey is a stud.
Right.
And McCaffrey is going to – it's almost like, they'll probably throw to Anderson a little bit here and there, but McCaffrey is their receiving back, and he's going to be on the field as much as possible for Carolina.
But I like the dual option there is that before they had Jonathan Stewart in Carolina, and like I guess he can catch, but they just never, ever used him as a receiving back. Now you have C.J. Anderson, who you know for sure can catch, but McCaffrey's still going to get his. I mean, he had over 80 catches last season. I don't think that's slowing down. I think he gets over 75 again this season, and that's with being able to give C.J. Anderson his 25 catches or so, but he's going to get the majority of the carries. He's also not going to get pulled on the goal line, so you have to figure that he's going to get more than 3 touchdowns for C.J. Anderson. If you pencil him in for like even 6, that's an extra 18 points right there just in touchdowns. If he gets a couple of catches and rushes for 1,000 yards, which he did in Denver with a horrible quarterback, every quarterback they put in there was worse than the one before. Now you have Cam Newton. Like I love his situation a lot more. I don't even think that C.J. Anderson can be considered as a flex. I think he's an RB2.
I think, me personally, I think that Cohen is going to finish in the RB2 status also. I think he's going to be finished back end, the 22 to 24 range. But I think he's someone that you're going to see a lot of potential. Like you said, he finished as running back 29 last year, and he was in an archaic offense.
Yeah,
I
agree.
So you just give him a few bumps up and get him some of those screens that he should have been getting in the middle of the season. And I think he easily finishes at the top 22, 23, 24 right there, the back end.
I agree. Ready to pull?
Let's pull.
Carlos Hyde for James.
Oh, I like this. This is a little veteran matchup here. Marshawn Lynch for me. This is good. I like this because I have a case to make for Marshawn Lynch. I think the way the Raiders used him last year, they were still trying to figure out at the very beginning of the season they wanted to keep him fresh. But once it got to be the weather change, and once it got to be colder outside, you saw how much they used Marshawn Lynch in the running game. Derek Carr obviously had an off season. Now you're bringing a brand new coach with John Gruden, who's been known as the quarterback guru. But I think that bringing in Doug Martin off the street, basically, when he got cut from Tampa, I think that's going to light a fire under Lynch. Lynch knows this is pretty much his last year. He's not going to move to Vegas with the Raiders. This is his last year in Oakland. It's his last year of his contract. They bring in Doug Martin to compete, and you get all kinds of hype on Doug Martin. And I think that what they're doing there is not saying that Doug Martin is this great running back. I think they're trying to light a fire under Lynch so that he returns to beast mode. Because there was a lot of times last year, especially at the beginning of the year, where Lynch just looked like he was like going through the motions.
That's him though, and that's
the way he's always been. So maybe they're trying to light a fire under him. So that's why I like his prospects for this year. He's not playing for a contract. He's playing as like a final hurrah. And we're talking redraft here. We're not talking dynasty. Because if it was dynasty, I would be off the Lynch train. But we're talking redraft here. And if you can get Lynch on the back end of this, or I'm sorry, the front end of the 7th round, you're still getting a starting running back in what would be a better offense than it was last year.
But Lynch is not known to get 50 catches, whereas Doug Martin, I think, will get the majority of the catches there, in my opinion. And an article just came out, I think it was this morning, 2 hours ago, that the offensive coordinator praised Doug Martin's quickness and ability to pick up the offense. Martin's been a disaster the last 2 seasons, but he says that he jumped out during all the training camp and during the off-season program, that he jumped off he stood out. So I don't know, again, if that's just a light of fire under Marshawn Lynch, but I do think that he is going to take touches away from Lynch. I think last season he had Jalen Richard in Washington there, and it was just 2 guys. Now you have Doug Martin, who has done it before. You've seen it multiple seasons before in his past. Maybe not last year, but he has those seasons where he has a huge season and then a huge letdown, then a really big season and a huge letdown. So if he has a hot hand, he's getting 5.5 yards a carry, he will start taking touches away and catches away from Marshawn Lynch, and I'm a little worried about that. I'd rather not own any of those 2 Raider running backs this season. On the other hand, Carlos Hyde is in a situation where he's got Nick Chubb and he's got Duke Johnson.
Committee City.
But I have said before on this show that I don't think that Nick Chubb just comes right in and starts taking carries away from Carlos Hyde. I just don't see it. Carlos Hyde last season finished somewhere up in the...
He was in the teens.
Yeah, okay.
Number 9.
Number 9 last year. Okay, so we know he can catch. We know he's big enough to be the goal line guy. Duke Johnson's not going to take the goal line away. If anything, you throw Nick Chubb in there, maybe steals vultures a couple of touchdowns. But I think the main starter is going to be Carlos Hyde getting the first and second down carries, and it's going to be Duke Johnson getting the receiving role. Unfortunately for this team, or for fantasy owners, all three of these guys can catch. So it's not like, I think it's great for Cleveland, for the actual team, but if you own these guys, I don't know how it's going to shake down with the receptions. Are they all going to get split 33% and not use Duke Johnson as much? He just signed a contract, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
That's exactly my point. Is I think they're going to eat into each other's stats, and if you look at the ADP,
but it could be something like New England.
Where
all three guys are all, they're all fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
Because Cleveland's known to be down a lot. They went 0-16 last season, so I don't think that they're going to all of a sudden just win 9 games. So if you're telling me that Cleveland is going to be 4-12 again, that means they're going to be down a lot of games, which means that they're going to be dumping off the ball a lot. And I think Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson and Chubb can all catch.
I look at it as a situation where I think both these guys will probably be starters week 1. I think Hyde and Marshawn Lynch are both the starters week 1, right?
For sure.
And if you're looking at value, you're talking about Lynch going in the 7th round and Carlos Hyde's going 1 round behind. But I think that the difference is that Lynch can possibly hold off Martin and be the starter all year, to whereas if Hyde falters at all and Chubb looks fantastic, Chubb could leapfrog him. Duke Johnson is what he is. He's the number 3, the receiving back.
You're talking Carlos Hyde finished as running back number 9 last year. It wasn't like he was like, okay, he's a back end RB2 or
number 9.
Okay.
Listen, number 9 in a Shanahan offense with nobody behind him really, because Joe Williams was hurt and they only had Matt Breida, an undrafted rookie, Matt Breida. Like, I'm not saying he's terrible, but I mean, have you ever heard of Matt Breida until last season when he was backing up Carlos Hyde?
No, but I'm just saying that the guy finished as RB9 and has been very consistent.
As the only guy, though.
Okay, but as of right now, if it's his job, then it doesn't matter who's behind him. If he just does his job and he's getting the yards per carry and he's getting the catches, it doesn't matter if it's Adrian Peterson in his prime behind him. If it's his job, you're telling me week 1, then it's his job to lose. It's not his job to win. He's already got the starting job. So you're telling me that he would have to falter at some point and maybe fumble a lot, or maybe only average 2.5 yards a carry before Chubb even gets a chance to be in the sentence to take over the starting job. Yes, Chubb's going to get touches. I don't get me wrong here. I don't think he's going to be irrelevant completely, but there's no way that by week 3 or 4, they're just going to yank Hyde and give Chubb the job. I just don't see that happening. So if you're telling me he's going to get the majority of the first and second downs and not get pulled on the goal line, I'll take Carlos Hyde all day against Marshawn Lynch, because Marshawn Lynch had back surgery before. He's missed entire seasons before. He retired for a year. He comes back. Let's be honest. Can we just admit that he's a head case? And a lot of things go up and down for him on a day-to-day basis, it seems like. And I don't want to invest in a 7th round of a guy that has a guy like Doug Martin behind him who can easily take over the job. They're both head cases.
I think this is his farewell tour. I think that Lynch
knows
he's not going to be back next year.
I think that they pace. This is where I'm afraid of Marshawn Lynch if I'm the owner. I think they pace him out so much at the start of the season, and it's like a 50-50 split almost between him and Doug Martin to make sure that if they are in consideration to go to the playoffs, that they have him healthy for their playoff run when it gets cold, like you said. So I think that the first half, like maybe the first 10 weeks of the season, I don't expect Marshawn Lynch to just be setting the world on fire. I think it's going to be split amongst those guys there, and they're going to kind of get a couple of wins and see where their team's at. And then come week 11 through 17, when they need that big push, then maybe Marshawn Lynch kind of takes over a little bit more of the role.
Okay, this could be a situation where it's complete flip-flop.
Correct.
This could be a situation where Hyde is getting you all the points the first half of the season, and then all of a sudden he fades out, to whereas Lynch might start the season off slow, and then towards the end of the season, he all of a sudden gets some of those points back. So,
good question. If you're a fantasy owner, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a guy that's super inconsistent for 10 weeks and you just sit on him and then hope that he pops? Or would you rather have a guy that's you're playing every single week but is not really killing it, and then he just kind of fades off in the sunset? Would you want him for the playoff right at the end, right?
I honestly would rather have the guy that turns it on at the very end of the season, because if he's being drafted in the 7th round. So he's not your running back 2.
Probably 3.
Okay, but towards the last week of the season, right before fantasy playoffs start, and you're talking like weeks 11, 12, 13, 14, that area right there, right before the playoffs, he's a guy that can be an RB2 that you can plug in as maybe your flex guy, because you have a running back 1 and you have a running back 2 already. Now you have Lynch as your flex guy. To me, that's what's going to push you over into the playoffs and going further than a guy like Carlos Hyde, who, maybe you started your season off 5-0, and you're like, man, I'm sitting pretty. But then, like, Hyde loses his job or whatever, he starts, like, splitting the, 33% each between these 3 guys. Who knows what's going to happen in Cleveland? And then all of a sudden, this guy starts to tail off. Now you're scrambling to find his replacement. To whereas you have Lynch, Now I've got my flex guy. Boom, I'm set.
Same situation though. You're drafting Carlos Hyde in the 8th round where he's going, so he's going to be your probably 4th running back, at least your 3rd at the highest. Like back when Carlos Hyde, like last season, he was being drafted way earlier. You know, he's going in the 4th, 5th round. Now he's going in the 8th round, which gives you that little bit of leeway that if he does tail off or he doesn't work out at the end of the season, hopefully you're not losing sleep over it, and your other 2 guys that you drafted as RB1 and 2 are still healthy, and you have like a David Johnson and a Tarek Cohen that's going to keep carrying you.
It just tells you that owners, obviously, from his ADP, owners are obviously worried about
Because
the
of
Nick Chubb effect.
Yep, Nick Chubb's only going 1 round after him, so.
Obviously. Let's draw again. Maybe we'll get these hammered out. Oh, here we go. Another Cleveland Brown. I got Duke Johnson.
And I got Marlon Mack.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, you go ahead and go first this time.
It's okay. I don't fully believe in any Indianapolis running back yet. I don't know how it's going to shake down. From everything that I've heard, it seems like Marlon Mack is going to get the first opportunity there to be the lead back. But from what I saw last season, I wasn't that impressed. Obviously, last season, though, they didn't have Andrew Luck. So I don't know if I'm fully ready to say I want any Colts running back, and if I did, I think I would go Nyheim Hines over Marlon Mack just because I know that he's going to be the PPR guy. But Marlon Mack can catch. So I think that the Colts are going to be down a lot of games. I think it's going to be a lot of dump-off passes. Andrew Luck's going to throw the ball, probably break the record for throwing the ball for passing attempts this season because they're going to be down so many games. Their defense is so bad. So I think there's going to be a ton of targets to go around. But as far as the starting running back, as long as Marlon Mack holds off Jordan Wilkins, I think that he's going to have a productive season. I don't know, though, week 1, if I have Marlon Mack, if I'm putting him in my starting lineup. I have to wait and see. Is Andrew Luck fully healthy? How is the running backs going to be used? Who's going to be the clear-cut starter? Is Des Bryant going to sign there? Now, I want to see how this whole thing's going to shake down. How are they using Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron in preseason? There's a lot of what-ifs on this offense. It could pan out where Marlon Mack holds off Jordan Wilkins and is the every down back, and Nyheim Hines just sprinkled in there, and all of a sudden now Marlon Mack's a top 20 guy. But I don't want to fully believe that until I see more from that offense. And you have Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson is what he is. He finishes running back, I think, 12 last season, was it?
Yeah, he finishes top 12.
Running back 12, but we both can agree he's going to take a huge step back. You sign Jarvis Landry, who's a PPR monster, is a short route guy that's going to take catches away from him. Then you go out and you get Nick Chubb, who can also catch, and you go and sign Carlos Hyde, who can also catch. So now you went from having no guys in the backfield that were or a receiver that was going to take anything away from Duke Johnson. He's getting 100 targets a year. Now all of a sudden you add all these guys, and all they do is catch short yardage passes. Where does that leave Duke Johnson? And I know he's going to drop. I just don't know how far he's going to drop. He might drop all the way down to to a running back 3 and just be irrelevant. And what if the Cleveland comes in and they use Carlos Hyde and they don't really see where Chubb's fitting in, but they want to get him some touches, and they start using Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb as a 50-50 split, and now Duke Johnson's odd man out. Now all of a sudden he's irrelevant.
I think that he won't be irrelevant. I think that, yes, his production will go down slightly, but you're talking about a guy that was drafted probably in the 8th or 9th round last year that gave you running back 1 in a PPR league as far as production. He gave you back end running back 1. To me, that's way over his ADP from last year, and he's going about the same this year. You can get Duke Johnson at the back end of the 8th round just because of the addition of Nick Chubb. Now,
Nick Chubb and Carlos Hyde, because Carlos Hyde can catch a lot better than Isaiah Crowell, in my opinion.
Okay, they both can catch better, but I think Duke Johnson has that role carved out. It's like Chris Thompson. It's like Chris Thompson in Washington. They know Darius Guice can catch, okay? They know he can catch, but Chris Thompson has that 3rd down role, which is just what Duke Johnson has. They just signed him to a 4-year deal, and the way they have his contract set up is different than the way they have Carlos Hyde set up. Carlos Hyde, they don't owe him anything if they cut him after this year. So Hyde's going to be there for this year in a redraft. Okay, and we just talked about him on our last little argument here. But where Marlon Mack is going in the back end of the 6th round, and to get Duke Johnson the back end of the 8th, is way better value for Duke Johnson. Marlon Mack is still in a committee just like Duke Johnson is. So now you're talking about 2 guys that are in committees. Okay, neither one of them is a clear-cut #1 starter. But you're talking about Marlon Mack, who has to not only fight off Jordan Wilkins and get probably not as many catches because of Nyheim Hines, but when Robert Turbin comes back, he's still a part of the offense, and he's not going to take away from them, but that's another guy that they're going to throw to. So now you have, to me, that's a full-blown committee,
Talent-wise,
just like Cleveland is.
Talent-wise, though, you have Duke Johnson, and the other 2 guys that are there, you're talking Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb, 2 potential studs. Marlon Mack, you're talking about has to beat out Jordan Wilkins, rookie, Nyheim Hines, a rookie, and Robert Turbin, who's done pretty much nothing his entire fantasy career. So if you're telling me, like if you flip-flop the two and you put Duke Johnson on the Colts, you'd be over the moon excited that you're like, oh, he's got to beat out Jordan Wilkins and this guy. So just by the situation that they're in, I love Marlon Mack more than Duke Johnson's situation because of the other guys that are around him. There's not much to beat out. If Marlon Mack has any talent whatsoever, he should be able to hold off a late round draft pick and running back in Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines, whose specialty is to catch the ball. So even if you want to throw in Nyheim Hines as a third down back, Marlon Mack, all he's got to do is beat out Jordan Wilkins, whereas Duke Johnson's got to fight for touches over Carlos Hyde, who finishes RB9, and Nick Chubb, who is arguably was one of the top running backs right after Saquon Barkley before he had his injury.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. But what I'm saying is that Marlon Mack, he shows flashes, but he's very inconsistent. I just read a stat on Twitter the other day where Marlon Mack was at the top of the league, not the first guy, but he's top of the league as far as like long runs. So he's the guy that's going to get you a couple of 15-yard runs, which is fantastic, but he also got tackled behind the line of scrimmage more than anybody else in the entire league. He's very inconsistent.
Per touch?
Per carry.
Okay, I was going to say, there's no, okay.
Per carry. And I know he got a couple minor injuries last year, and he's coming off a shoulder injury this year.
Can we not agree that's because the Colts offensive line is so bad and Andrew Luck wasn't there? So the Colts knew that, look, we can blitz as many guys as we want. All we really have to do is shut down T.Y. Hilton. They have nothing in the backfield. It was Frank Gore, and Frank Gore actually did okay, but like they had no other really like. You're not scaring them. You put 8 guys in the box, it's going to be really hard to run on anybody. But now you throw Andrew Luck back there, even with mediocre receivers and mediocre tight ends, he's going to make them fantasy relevant and open up the running game to where they're not going to be having 8 guys in the box stacking it like they did last season, in my opinion.
I completely understand that, but give me the guy that's been more consistent and actually has a role carved out as opposed to somebody that's going 2 rounds earlier that is like a shot in the dark. He could be number 1, but he also could be in a full-blown 3-man committee.
I do think there's a little bit of hype train going on Marlon Mack right now just because of the situation that he's in. It's kind of like he's being force-fed to everyone as like, this guy's got to be the guy because there's no one else is there, which is not always the case. Somebody like Jordan Wilkins could come out of the blue and all of a sudden get the hot hand, and for 6 weeks he's fantasy relevant, and then Marlon Mack is by the wayside. That could happen. But it could also happen the same way with Duke Johnson. All of a sudden, Nick Chubb comes in, they decide, we're going to use Chubb on the goal line, and the guy can catch. Let's get him in the open field a couple of times. Now, instead of getting Duke Johnson 100 targets, he only gets 60, and maybe Chubb gets 50. And now all of a sudden, that leaves Carlos Hyde still is like, Carlos Hyde had, 45 catches, 50 catches last season, somewhere around there? Like, he's just not going to be completely out of the offense when it comes time to pass. He will be getting his targets as well.
I see what you're saying, but even if you take Duke Johnson's targets down, I still think he does the most that he can possibly do with those targets.
Okay, last one. Ready?
Last one.
Make it quick. James, I got my man Tevin Coleman.
And I got my boy Isaiah Crowell.
That's your boy? I know, I like Tevin Coleman. I drafted him in the TCP League. I think that Tevin Coleman, regardless of if you want to call him a 1A or a 1B, the fact that the Falcons run so many plays that I'm okay with that. To me, it's the exact same situation as Kamara and Mark Ingram last season. If you look at the numbers of Devontae Freeman's touches to Tevin Coleman's touches the last 3 years, it started off very far apart, and Freeman was a clear-cut number 1 guy. If you look, the trend is Freeman's getting less touches, and Coleman is getting more touches, and now they're almost starting to meet in the middle where there's only like a 40 to 60 touch range in between the two, which is almost to me a 50-50 split. So a 50-50 split on the Atlanta Falcons offense, I will take that any day with Tevin Coleman. He's still young. He is now in his last season for his contract, which is a prove-it year. If he comes out and does very well this season, he knows that he's due to make a gigantic contract just like Jerick McKinnon did this coming season. He's going to get the same kind of contract. So as long as he stays healthy, Tevin Coleman should have a big year because he knows the rest of his career and his bank account counts on it, whereas Isaiah Crowell is going to get lost in the shuffle over in New York. You have Elijah McGuire there. You also have Bilal Powell. And I think that Isaiah Crowell is going to be in the offense of, like, who's the Jets' identity? Who's the guy that's going to stand out there? Is it going to be, one guy 1 week and then another guy this week, and then, okay, they're down this week, so they don't use Crowell at all. It's going to be all Elijah McGuire. Are they going to be in the lead 1 week and Crowell's going to get 25 carries? Like, you just don't know with the Jets, and that whole entire team is a little shaky. We kind of talked about that in a previous episode. So if it's shakiness in Crowell or Tevin Coleman, which I know is going to be a fantasy staple, he's always in the top 25 every single year that he's been there and he's healthy, I'll take the guy that I can rely on, Tevin Coleman.
I want to start off by saying I think Tevin Coleman's going to be a Raider next year. Let's just put that out there in the
for 2019.
2019, I think he's going to be an Oakland Raider.
I would love that. Derek Carr to To Tevin Coleman.
And hopefully Las Vegas. If you look at their contracts on all their running backs they have right now, all 4 of them, they're all 1 year except for I think DeAndre Washington
is 2.
Yes. So I think that they're primed to bring in someone like Tevin Coleman, but that's besides the point. So Isaiah Crowell finished as running back 32, and obviously it was a terrible, terrible year for him because even the last year before that he finished as a solid high-end RB2 for Cleveland. Yeah, he comes into the Jets as the starter. For whatever reason, I don't know why the Jets don't like Bilal Powell, but it seems like every time Powell has a shot at maybe being an RB1 or even just the lead in the committee, they do something else to bring in somebody else. So for whatever reason, I think they're trying to phase Powell out. He's almost 30 years old, so they bring in Crowell, who they know is going to be the unquestioned first and second down guy. He can catch, even though he doesn't catch very many balls. He's not going to catch as many as Tevin Coleman. That's a guarantee. I'm not going to go on the board as saying that he's going to come anywhere near Tevin Coleman's receptions.
So
but
he is going to
be.
So you have to hope that the Jets are winning games for Isaiah Crowell to get a significant amount of touches. Does that scare you at all to think that like, hey,
Okay, it does worry me a little bit. But you and I have talked about this on other podcasts, other episodes about how the Jets' offense, where it may not be the best fantasy relevant, I think they're going to have a good offense.
Me too.
So if they can move the ball, and then you have somebody like Crowell who's going to be getting the goal line, because I think that he's definitely going to get the goal line over Elijah McGuire and Bilal Powell, even if they don't face Powell out. So now you're talking about giving me first and second down easily, right? Probably not third down, and you're going to give me goal line, okay, with an occasional catch here and there. And you're going to get this guy 2 rounds later than Tevin Coleman, who is unquestioned going to be behind Devontae Freeman to start the season.
I don't know behind him, but I'd say beside him.
Okay, beside him, but I bet you he won't get as many carries as Freeman. Like he'll get even if it's say 15 or 20 carries less, he's not going to get more than Freeman.
Okay.
To whereas Crowell is definitely getting first and second down and goal line. In an offense that is going to be able to move the ball.
But don't you think that Tevin Coleman's more comfortable in the role that he's in right now, that he's been there for the last 3 seasons, or 3 seasons with Devontae Freeman? And if you look at his fantasy stats from last season, look how many double-digit, 9.8, so that's not really double-digit, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, he had 9, he only played 14 games, and he had 9 weeks where he scored double digits, and the 2 that he didn't, it was 9.4, 9.8. So I mean, like he's fantasy damn relevant every single week last season. He only had 1 dud, which he had 1.6 points in, and that was a week that I think he got banged up. And then the last week before he got hurt, he had 3.2. Those are just 2 really bad weeks out of 16 weeks. He only played 14 of them. So when he was playing, he was very fantasy relevant, scoring double digits. And if my running back 3 is getting me double digits every week, then I feel very good about that. And he's being drafted at the back end of the 6th round. Tevin Coleman is so. You're looking at he's going to be your 3rd running back. So my 3rd running back, which is what he is in the TCP league that we're in, I feel very good about starting him every single week and knowing that like he's going to get touches, whether it be in the passing game, whether it be rushing attempts. He will be getting enough to be fantasy relevant every week, and I feel very confident putting him ahead of Lamar Miller, who's my number 4. I'd rather play Tevin Coleman.
The one thing that just worries me a little bit about Coleman is that if given the chance, he's a solid running back, and I think he can get you back in RB1 or even high-end RB2 numbers if Freeman wasn't there. Like, let's admit that last year was a down year for Freeman. He had a couple of minor injuries. He had a concussion where he missed like a week and a half. He also had, I believe it was an ankle injury where he missed like a game or 2.
Yeah, they both missed, I think, 2 games.
He was banged up, and when Coleman gets a chance, he does well. But when Freeman is healthy and 100% there,
I think
he's
that only
not
helps
getting
him.
more than 50-50.
But I think that only helps him. That's just like Kamara and Mark Ingram. Like Kamara now is going to be able to show what he can do without Mark Ingram the first couple weeks of the season, and we're going to see that dynamic. But I think Kamara works better having that other guy there to kind of take the pressure off him and keep his legs fresh, know that he's still going to get his touches, so neither one of them is mad about the other one getting stats, because they're like, I know I'm going to get mine, I'm still going to be fine, and I feel better about it. I'm not getting 30 touches a game where my body's banged up by week 6. You're questionable every single week. This is a good 50-50 split, and they use them very well together, and I think that they're going to be very successful, Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman. Don't you agree?
I get your point, but I'm going to take the guy that's probably almost a full 2 rounds behind in Isaiah Crowell, because I'm going to take the consistency of his first and second down and the goal line.
I don't believe that you would. You can sell that to the viewers and listeners, but I don't believe that you would. I think Tevin Coleman is clearly clear cut above Isaiah Crowell.
I think Crowell's in a bounce back year, though. I think you already know.
I thought that was
going
to
to
happen last season with Cleveland, and then essentially
not a bounce back because 2 years ago he had a good year.
But okay, Isaiah Crowell for him to be successful, just like he wasn't last year in Cleveland, because they were down every single game, and so that's why Duke Johnson had 100 targets. If the Jets don't produce points and they're going to be down, or they have a losing record and they finish 6-10, that to me means Isaiah Crowell is not going to have a good season because they're going to be down, which means they're going to be dumping the ball off and passing a lot. And if they're going to be passing a lot, I love the receiving core for the Jets. I love the receiving backs for the Jets. That's where Isaiah Crowell, to me, kind of misses the mark, as if it all depends on the rest of the Jets' offense to make him relevant. Whereas Tevin Coleman, I don't care if they're losing, he's going to get catches. If they're winning, he's going to get touches. It doesn't matter.
I 100% to your point. I just think that the Jets are going to be one of those teams that surprises people, and they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be like the Buffalo Bills were last year, where everyone thought they were like trying to tank it, and they ended up making the playoffs. I think the Jets are going to be a team that's under consideration for second place in that division behind the Patriots. I think they're better than Miami.
I agree.
And I think they're better than the Buffalo Bills. So
I agree.
They could seemingly be 8-8 or 7-9 and still not have a good season where they make the playoffs, but they still could have a relevant season to where maybe they're not down every single game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I could see them finishing as second.
Well, I think that one went pretty smooth. I actually like that.
I like it better trying to convince the listeners instead of trying to convince you, because you're very hard-headed.
Because you're not.
Exactly. You ready to crack one?
Let's crack it.